Thank you very much. I'd just like to tell you a little bit about Camden Friends of Palestine. We're an informal or loosely formed group for them to consider a motion for ceasefire. They've already refused it before, and they have refused our deputation today. So we're going to tell you in a moment exactly what was in that deputation, in that statement that has been turned down. Why Camden? We're really keen that Camden says something. We're really keen that Camden says something about ceasefire in the same way they said about Ukraine. There is no difference. We want them to support a motion for ceasefire. So anybody who wants to find out more about the Camden Friends of Palestine, we meet weekly on Wednesdays, 6:30 to 8:30. Come to one of us and we'll give you details. Thank you very much for coming today. It's wonderful to see such a brilliant turnout. I'd like now to introduce our first speaker, and that's Dan, and he's going to tell you exactly what Camden refused to hear today.
Thank you. Welcome everybody. Thank you for coming. So on the 18th of February, we applied to Camden Council for a deputation for permission to come into the council chamber and address the councillors on the situation in Gaza. Our deputation party was headed by Andrew Feinstein. We had 2 councillors from Islington Council who supported the ceasefire motion there, who are going to be sitting alongside us. This morning, having sat on it for 2 weeks, the Mayor refused to hear the deputation. She said it was inappropriate for active politicians to address Camden Council about the situation in Gaza. She said that Camden Council have no influence or control over matters concerning Gaza, notwithstanding the £34 million they have invested in companies supporting the occupation. And finally, they said that they had a busy agenda today, and they had a budget to pass. There's no part of that budget which is considering divestment of the £34 million that they have invested in the occupied territories. So as Camden Council continues to stonewall and prevaricate and delay, we're going to make our deputation outside the town hall instead. So our deputation to Camden Council is as follows. We make this request for a deputation following the failure of Camden Council to adopt a motion calling for an immediate ceasefire in Palestine and the end to all acts of genocide. Since the horrific events of the 7th of October, the Israeli Defense Forces military campaign in the Gaza Strip has left around 30,000 Palestinians in Gaza dead, 70,000 injured, and more than 8,000 missing. The latest available statistics suggest that over 13,000 of the civilian casualties are children, and of course the numbers increase each day. With Israel's planned ground invasion of Rafah, a small city the size of Heathrow Airport, hosting over 1.4 million displaced Gazans, and Egypt's development of desert camps to hold the predictable exodus of civilians, the situation couldn't be more urgent. But the bare statistics don't come close to reflecting the true scale and impact of this campaign, of the systematic destruction of civilian infrastructure, the targeting of basic systems of healthcare, education, energy, water supply, aid, and agriculture, and the thousands, if not more, of children left without parents, friends, and homes. In 4 months, the death toll is nearly 3 times the number of civilian casualties in the 2 years of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Camden Council took a vocal stand in solidarity with the people of the Ukraine. On the 21st of December, the council leader said Camden is proud to stand in solidarity with Ukraine. But in respect of Gaza, the council leader has nothing to say. She wrote a letter to the Camden New Journal on the 15th of February. Her letter doesn't mention genocide, it doesn't mention solidarity, and it doesn't call for an immediate ceasefire. Gaza is being reduced to rubble. so that it cannot, in reality, continue to sustain Palestinian life. On the 12th of October, the Israeli president abandoned any attempt to distinguish between military and civilian targets. He said, it is an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true, this rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved. So Camden Council will have £34 million invested in companies associated with the Israeli occupation of Palestine. By deputation to the full council, Camden Friends of Palestine want to address the council on 1. The absence of an equivalent show of solidarity for those affected by the IDF's attack on Gaza, despite the ICJ's binding ruling that Israel's actions constitute plausible genocide. 2, the reasons why it is not even debated a motion calling for a ceasefire, unlike other local authorities in the UK, like Islington, Sheffield, Preston, Bradford, Oxford, unlike the Mayor of London, the Mayor of Greater Manchester, the UN Secretary General, the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Pope.
Ceasefire now!
Ceasefire now!
And why Camden Council remains invested in £34 million in its pension fund in companies complicit in the Israeli occupation of Palestine. The situation in Palestine is a grave and urgent matter affecting a large number of Camden's residents, and through its pension fund, Camden's functions. The failure of Camden Council to express its solidarity with the people of Gaza and call for an immediate ceasefire and to divest itself from companies complicit in genocide demands the immediate attention of the full council. And that was our deputation, and they have nothing to say about it. They have no response.
Thanks very much, Dan. I'd like to introduce our next speaker. We're really privileged to have Andrew Feinstein here, a Camden resident and an ex-member of the ANC government with Nelson Mandela. Andrew.
I want to tell you something that my former boss, Nelson Mandela, said to us when we first came into office in South Africa. He walked into a meeting of our caucus and he said to us, "Who here thinks you're important?" And he knew that a few people would put their hands up. And he said, "Just remember who you represent. Because the moment you think you are more important than the people who elected you here, than the people who pay your salary, then you are of no use to our movement, to this parliament, or to our country." And that is exactly what we need to say today to our councillors. Over 70% of people in this country have been demanding an immediate ceasefire for over 4 months now. But the vast majority of our elected politicians refuse to call for an unqualified immediate ceasefire.
Why?
At the same time as we watch almost 250 innocent people being slaughtered in cold blood every day, our council and our government, as you heard from Dan in the deputation, are profiting from that. So it's not just that they are not supporting a ceasefire, they are actually profiting from it by being invested in the companies that are enabling and facilitating this slaughter.
Get the government out!
And let us remember what the highest court in the world has said. There is a plausible risk, which means to those of us who are not lawyers, it is very likely that Israel is committing genocide in Gaza.
That's right.
For those of us who are watching this genocide being committed in real time on our screens,
It's deplorable.
we have a responsibility to make clear to our council and to our government that this is not being done in our names, and we do not want it being done with our tax pounds. Because, and this is very important for you to realize, British arms companies are providing Israel with the bombs, the missiles, and the spare parts for the planes that are engaged in this mass slaughter. And those companies are subsidized with our tax pounds. I, as a Jew, as the son of a Holocaust survivor who lost dozens of her family in Auschwitz and other places, I do not want 1 penny of my tax contributions to be used in support of Israel's genocide in Gaza. So can I appeal finally to all of you? Keep on turning out in these huge numbers. Keep on demanding that our representatives represent us and our views, not them and their profits. And this Saturday there's going to be another national march.
Nice.
Make sure not just you, not just your family, not just your friends, but everybody you know turns out for that march. It is the most important one yet. And let me tell you something else. And that is, we must continue to remind our councillors, our MPs, that we will not vote for anybody who has not called for a ceasefire 4.5 months ago. So let's continue to campaign. Let's continue to put pressure on our local council and our government to bring peace and justice to Palestine. And let us do it in the honor of the tens of thousands of innocents who've lost their lives. And let's join together in echoing the words of Nelson Mandela, who called Israel an apartheid state, but also said, after 27 years in an apartheid jail, when he emerged from that jail, he said, "Our freedom is incomplete without the freedom of the Palestinian people."
Our next speaker is a councillor from Islington Council, and the reason she's here is that she signed the deputation to Camden Council to support it. And her name is Ilkay, and she's going to tell you what happened. Thank you.
I'm an Islington Labour councillor. On the 14th of December 2023, Islington unanimously voted for an immediate ceasefire. We were initially told that we could not discuss foreign policy, that it was not a local issue. However, with the support of the other councillors and with the support of our residents and listening to our residents, we finally put the motion through. This was voted in unanimously, not just by the Greens, not by the Independents, but the whole of Islington Council, all of the councillors. So it comes as quite shocking that Camden can't follow. Camden councillors are elected by the residents, and they should remember this. If they cannot hear the voices of their residents who are asking for a ceasefire, whose leader has called for a ceasefire, then shame on them. I have been asked to take my name off the deputation because other politicians cannot sign deputations for other boroughs. This is completely ridiculous because I signed it because I am human.
Yes.
I signed it because I want an end to the massacre. I signed it because I want an end to the ethnic eradication of a people. We cannot remain silent. Being silent is being complicit in genocide. We have to stand strong, and Camden, shame on you. You need to call for an immediate ceasefire.
Can I introduce our next, I can't say speaker. We have somebody here who's going to read to you her poem. She wrote it herself. It lasts a minute. She's Kurdish originally. And how old are you? She's 10. Please listen.
Hi everyone. I call this poem The Children. They should be free. Zionists just don't see. They should have power over their own country. Think about the kids, the newborn babies gone, all their freedom gone. Think about the kids. Let them break free, let them keep their family. Their blood covers the road, their blood full of generosity. Fight for the children who can't have medical care. Fight for the children who can't learn a single thing. Schools are bombed, hospitals are destroyed, all things that Palestinian children cannot avoid. If you want to stop this, try to stop this. If you want to stop this, stand to stop this. Palestinian children, their spirit is strong and true. Think about how you would feel if your family was killed in front of you. Free them from the bombs, free them from the misery. One day Palestine will be free, you shall see.
Thank you very, very much. That was absolutely wonderful. Next, we're going to have the 10 people that would have been inside the town hall, but were refused. They're speaking for a minute each, and they're going to tell us what they would have said if they'd been allowed to say it to the councillors. Okay, first one.
Free! Palestine! Free! Free! Palestine! So not only did Camden Council block the deputation, but they've also stopped the public from going into the gallery, they've stopped residents from being able to see the meeting.
Cowards! Cowards! Cowards!
I wrote down what I was going to say so that I could keep it to like 40 seconds, because that's what I thought I would get in there. In recent days, we've heard really, really dangerous rhetoric from the government, calling everybody who stands in solidarity with the struggle for Palestinian liberation an Islamist or an extremist. Camden Council seem to be following the lead of the government on this in stopping us from being able to go and participate in local democracy. But it is so clear that there's really broad support right across Camden, right across our really diverse communities for a ceasefire and for justice. And as one of the many Palestinians in Camden, I feel really disappointed with the council's failure to engage with an issue that is so central to our lives. What we're seeing is a brutal genocide against Palestinians by Israel in the context of what is ongoing settler colonisation and ongoing apartheid. We want Camden Council to hear a ceasefire motion in that chamber, and we insist that they withdraw from funding Israeli genocide through council workers' pension funds. Free Palestine!
I just want to say that we are being told that we're intimidating, we're being told that we're aggressive, but I truly believe that the reason that we are not allowed in there today is because we will win. Yes. And they know that. Our movement is huge, and they're not frightened because we're aggressive, they're frightened because we're on the right side, and we will win! So this is what I was going to say inside. I was going to address the councillor, the leader of Camden Council, Georgia Gould, who spoke over us the last time we went in there. and I was going to ask her to very kindly listen to us this time around. Then I was going to address Mayor Nazma Rahman, who I spoke directly to last month. There was a small glimmer of hope that she heard us. But since then, she said nothing. Since then, we've heard nothing, except that since then, Israel has killed 4,008 Palestinians. Since then, 15 Palestinian children died from starvation. Since then, Israel killed 112 and injured 760 in what is now called the Red Flower Massacre, because it was a trap by Israel for the starving people who went to go get flour. Since then, Israel ran over a boy with their tank, and apart from the flesh and crushed bone, his arm remained intact with a zip tie around it. Since then, a 13-year-old boy from my grandmother's hometown, Ramallah, was shot in the chest by the IOF and killed. And that was 2 days ago. And since then, Israel has taken thousands of Palestinian hostages, and the UN report of Israeli soldiers raping detainees was released. As a full-time NHS doctor who is part Palestinian, this government is actively using my tax pounds to kill my people. This council is actively funding apartheid Israel. Shame. Shame. And I consider myself an average Brit. And as the average Brit struggles, as NHS doctors strike, as the homelessness crisis worsens, as chronic underfunding of social housing continues, we, the people of Camden, say, not in our name. Say it after me, not in our name. So we want the Camden Council to support an immediate ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. Ceasefire now. And we want them to permanently cut funding to apartheid Israel now. And like I said, I believe that we will win. So say it after me. I believe that we will win. 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 I believe that we will win.
Okay. 19,000 children have been killed. That is equivalent to every single primary school child in the borough of Camden being killed, and then half that number again. The children who've survived the bombing are now being starved to death. Mahmoud Fatou, a 2-month-old baby born during Israel's assault, has just died of starvation. The only life that baby boy ever knew was being tortured by Israel. The children left are eating animal feed, grass and mud. This is the fastest decline in nutritional health ever recorded. Children are being starved at a rate never seen before on this planet. Mothers who are starving cannot produce breast milk, and they have no formula to feed their babies. In the last week alone, 10 children have died from starvation and dehydration. All over the world, people have been marching every single week calling for a ceasefire. Camden Council, you all have the power, the privilege, and platform to do something about it.
Yeah.
So why won't you call for an immediate and permanent ceasefire? Why not? Why?
Here's what I was going to say from the gallery to Camden Council. Camden councillors say they have tried to overcome the rise of hate crime and community divisions due to Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. But they have evaded the causes in the dominant racist narratives. These narratives justify Israel's genocide as self-defense, as if the Palestinians were the aggressors, and as if the solidarity movement here was driven by Islamist extremism. So says the Prime Minister. Moreover, pro-Israel propaganda demonizes critics like us as anti-Semitic, thus falsely equating Israel with Jews, leading people to blame Jews for Israel's crimes, and so worsening anti-Semitic hatred. The main political parties have colluded with these racist narratives, so they are complicit with anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. That was my message to Camden Council.
I'm one of 10 people who had planned to go into the public gallery as citizens of Camden to, just for 1 minute each, give our views to Camden Council. Why did we want to go in? We wanted to go in because we can't find our councillors. We write to them, they don't reply. We turn up to their surgeries, they're not there. They've cancelled, they've postponed, they've changed the venue. And then tonight, we're locked out. The public, the people that they have been elected to represent, have been locked out of the town hall. I have lived in Camden for 40 years. I began campaigning in Camden 38 years ago when Camden Council was trying to shut down the council nurseries that my children were at. In those days, we were welcomed into the town hall. We were allowed to go and talk to the officers. We could talk to the representatives, the elected councillors. No longer. This is now about democracy, as well as the crime that they are plausibly complicit in. I now want to read the 1 minute's worth that I was going to say to the cowardly councillors hiding behind those locked doors.
Cowards! Cowards!
Members of Camden Council, I beseech you to listen to your electorate and to represent the people of Camden. The majority of people of Camden, as in the UK as a whole, want an immediate halt to the mass slaughter and starvation of the people of Palestine. As a significant local council, your voice will make a difference. Well, it could make a difference. We have written to you, but you have ignored us. We have gone to meet with you at your surgeries, and you have dodged us. You were elected to represent us. You must realise that you are very likely complicit in plausible genocide as a result of your employee pension investments and the ruling of the highest court in the world. Just think about that. It is time to stand up to Starmer and his backroom bullies. And confirm publicly today that you are not and will not have anything to do with funds that invest in companies that are complicit in Israel's abuses of Palestinian rights. Long live Palestine!
Long live Palestine!
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello. This is what I would have said to Camden Council. Camden Council, please listen to us. I'm a Camden resident. As a single mother, I moved to Camden 24 years ago with my 7-year-old and 8-year-old daughters. We had left our home fleeing domestic violence. Neighbors often heard the shouts, the screams, and were silent, telling themselves it was nothing to do with them. We will not be silent in Camden. We will not be silent! Allowing the abuse to carry on for years, and Camden was our place of refuge then. Camden needs to be a place of refuge now.
Yes!
This is nothing compared to what is happening to the mothers and children in Palestine. But if Camden is silent, Camden is complicit in allowing the genocide to go on. If our council, elected by us, is silent, is funding the ongoing genocide through investing the government pension funds in companies associated with the unlawful occupation of Palestine, we are all complicit. Shame, Camden Council. You are allowing and enabling war crimes, not in my name, not in our name. Newborn babies are dying of starvation. The mothers are so malnourished they cannot produce milk. The water is contaminated. So even if baby formula were found, the milk would be made from contaminated water. This is a deliberate attempt to wipe out a people of color, to replace them with another. As a person of color, of Muslim heritage, this is personal to me. There is no greater evil than to massacre starving people, collecting food for their dying children. Shame, Camden!
Shame!
Camden did speak out in support of white, blonde victims of war in Ukraine. But now, when the victims are Arab Palestinians, Camden will not speak up. Why, Camden? Why will you not speak up? Stop the killing. Speak out against ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people, the genocide. Stop funding war crimes. It is Camden Council's business. To stay neutral in the eye of oppression is to take the side of the oppressor. Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Okay, I'm Paul Rennie. I'm an active trade unionist, and I want to bring solidarity from the trade union movement. My union is fully... Yeah, oh sorry, I've just been told. I would have spoken in the chamber if I was given the chance, but they didn't want to hear me. They don't want to hear. They don't want to hear about an ongoing genocide. So this is what I would have said. And listen, I'm an emotional person. I've run out of tears. I'm angry. I'm angry at what's happening in my lifetime. Right, I'll start now. Councillors, I'm a Camden resident. I've tried to contact you, but to no avail. You have ignored me. I have 2 granddaughters. One of them is 6 years old, who I spent last weekend. We went to see, went to the theatre. It was lovely. But there is a 6-year-old I want to speak to you about. That is Hind Rajab, 6 years old, who will never spend her time with her grandparents, because if her grandparents are still alive, because she was murdered by Israeli troops. She was murdered by Israeli troops along with her sister, 2 cousins, an aunt and an uncle. She spent the last few hours of her life pleading for help on a mobile. The 2 Red Crescent workers sent to rescue her were also assassinated by the IDF, and they knew exactly what they were doing. This was a war crime, part of a collective punishment of Palestinians, which has killed over 30,000, over 14,000 children. An American doctor, Ifran Galia, writing in the LA Times, having worked in January in Gaza, spoke of pulling shrapnel out of children's bodies and performing amputations with a jiggly saw, which is essentially a bit of barbed wire without anaesthesia. He said on one occasion a handful of children, all between 5 and 8, were taken to a hospital with sniper shots to the head. Snipers know who they're shooting. So none of these handful of children survived. That is a war crime. This is collective punishment. This is targeting children. And now they are starving them. When does it end? In what world is this acceptable? How can we stay silent? How many is too many? How many children have to die? How many civilians have to die before Camden Council recognises that a genocide is taking place? To stay silent is complicit. Which side are you on? To not call out collective punishment is to give licence to those carrying out to continue this barbarity. Camden Council, where is your humanity? We're not going away. We will carry on until we have victory. Freedom to Palestine. Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! Free, free! Palestine! We carry on!
Our next speaker is Saleh Sagal, and he's chairperson of the Camden Palestine Solidarity Committee, who partly helped to organise today. Sabi.
Thank you, Jill, and thank you everybody once again for coming out to protest on this cold, wintry night. Israel's genocidal assault on the people of Gaza is a continuation of the ethnic cleansing that was begun in 1948, when the Israeli militia expelled at gunpoint 3/4 of the Palestinian population, 750,000 people, and another 300,000 were expelled in 1967. Shame. And we know that Lord Balfour, who was British Foreign Secretary in 1917, he gave the Jews a homeland in the Middle East. And this was not because he loved the Jews. This was because a Jewish homeland in the Middle East, a Jewish state, would be of use, would serve the interests of British imperialism in the region. That same Lord Balfour was actually an anti-Semite. In 1905, he was Prime Minister, and he carried out the Aliens Act, which tried to keep Jewish refugees fleeing anti-Semitism in Eastern Europe out of this country, people like my family. We've heard a lot about terrorism, and of course, none of us support terrorism. But the greatest terrorist in the Middle East is undoubtedly the State of Israel. And can I call on everybody to put Camden Council to shame once again? I contacted my local councillor a couple of weeks ago, a leading councillor, and asked to see her. And I was asked, what do you want to speak about? And I said, the conflict in the Middle East. The next day, I was told the meeting was cancelled. It's cancelled. Shame. Because the councillor only deals with local issues. I then saw that, in fact, she had issued strong statements in support of Ukrainian refugees, in support of Afghanistan refugees. And I said, well, that surprises me. I'm not an expert in geography, but I wasn't aware that Afghanistan and Ukraine were located in Camden. And I'm not in the habit of agreeing with Tory politicians, but the politician who, I think it was Suella Braverman, when she was Home Secretary, described all these protests as hate marches, hate rallies. Well, I actually agree with her. We're here because we hate racism. We hate apartheid. We hate persecution. And that is why we're here. So, just a final word that I would like to say is that we've heard a lot about apartheid Israel. And of course it is an apartheid state, as Andrew reminded us earlier. But in fact, there is a difference between Israel and South Africa. In South Africa, the black working class were very militant. They were employed. They had economic power. They could help to bring down the apartheid regime. They played a leading role. In Israel, the Zionist economy always excluded the Palestinians. They didn't want to employ them, which means the Palestinians don't have that economic power, which means that they depend all the more on our solidarity. So we're here to protest and express our solidarity, and we will come here week after week. We will demonstrate week after week in support of the Palestinians until Palestine is free. Thank you all for coming.
I hope that you're not getting too cold. We've nearly finished, but I just wanted to add one thing about visiting counsellors in their surgeries. When a deputation of 4 of us in our local ward went to a surgery, she said in the end, when I mentioned Ukraine, she said, if you don't leave now, I'm leaving. We sat there. She left. She left the room. So that's how Camden councillors are responding to us now. Very briefly, we've got 2 more speakers. Sam Weinstein from the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network.
That's right. I'm from the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network, and we have always known that Zionism was racist, imperialist, and genocidal. And the proof, as we have seen, is in the pudding now. And I want to tell you that I come from a very different tradition than those monsters in Jerusalem that are killing women and children in such numbers that you cannot be against violence against women unless you are against this genocide. I come from the tradition of Barak Edelman, who said to be a Jew is to be on the side of the oppressed, never the oppressor. It's the tradition of Karl Marx, Rosa Luxemburg, Emma Goldman, and Leon Trotsky, and a whole series of social activists through the 19th and 20th centuries who fought against capitalism all over the place. And it is the tradition of my Polish truck driver grandfather who came from Poland to New York and founded a trade union. And it is the tradition of my mother, Selma James, who founded the Wages for Housework campaign and to this day fights for money for all carers, especially mothers. And she is horrified to watch the slaughter of children and babies in Gaza. And I have one last story. I tell it all the time, and you may have heard it before. But it's important. It's a true story. On the first day after the bombing began, a woman came up to me. I was holding the banner, the International Jewish Anti-Zionist Network banner. And she said, "How can you be against your own people?" And I said, "Those are not my people. My people are the Palestinians. In our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians."
Thank you for your patience. It's been absolutely amazing. And of course you're trapped because you have to stand there holding the banners. Thank you. One last speaker, very, very quickly. So,
Hi, I'm Simon Pearson. I've been told to be very quick, which is just as well because I've got nothing made up in advance. But believe it or not, until 18 months ago, I was a Camden councillor, and I would have been in there doing the boring stuff, but I was barred from standing again at the last election, partly because of my support for Palestinians and my opposition to the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which conflates Jewishness with being Israeli. totally unwarranted. And I was obviously very naive, because you could come and see me in Swiss Cottage Library, and if you couldn't get to see me, my mobile phone number was published, so you could phone me up. But apparently all my former colleagues in there are hiding in there, and you can't get in touch with them. So I don't know what's going on, but they must call for a ceasefire. Thank you very much.
On behalf of Camden Friends of Palestine, I'd like to thank you all for standing in the cold and letting Camden Council know exactly how you feel. You've been amazing. Thank you so much.